Alright, so in this module, let's take a look at expanding some of the knowledge we've learned in the previous module. We want to expand some of what we can do within certain suites in ZBrush. And then we actually want to look at doing combinations thereof, because ZBrush is a very, very powerful program, and you're not limited. There's a million ways to do everything. There's a million ways to do combinations of everything. We'll try and cover, one or two of those just to get an idea, but I really do urge you to explore and really see what you're looking at doing. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of perspective. Right now, if you look over here to the right-hand side, it says dynamic perspective. It's orange. That means it's active. If I hit my P key, I'm now in ortho. I'm going to hit Shift P to turn off my grid. I don't need it right now. Shift F turns on our wireframe. And again, left mouse, Alt, let go, Alt. I can zoom in and zoom out of my Dynasphere. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate our subtool. This is our subtool. And again, this subtool list, I've had like 40, 50 different layers. And this works like layers in Photoshop. It has the little eyeball, shows you it's visible and active. Let's go ahead and just duplicate that a couple times. Now, what's the difference between them? Right now, there's nothing. We duplicated literally this sphere. So we now have duplicates. This way I can muck around with this one and then just delete it and move to the next one. I don't need these two showing, however. So like Photoshop, I can either click the little icon, the eyeball icon, it turns them off, or I can click the eyeball on the active subtool and it turns off anything that is not active, not on this active layer, okay? I'm sorry, the active subtool. Layers are a different thing, and we will get into that. All right, so let's go over a couple different things that I use a lot with the Dynamesh. Now, right now, if we go to our Geometry tab and we go to Dynamesh, the Geometry tab is where the Dynamesh sub palette is. Just click on it. It shows right now that the Dynamesh is active. It says that the resolution is 64. That means it's 64 by 64. All right. When we're working in Dynamesh, when you're sculpting on it, etc., and it starts looking pixelated, then that's when we go up. And I usually go in numbers of doubling it. So if I go from 64 to 128 to 256, 512, 1024, I don't tend to ever have to go up higher than that. In fact, I rarely have to do 1024 to be honest, but I can. What that means is, let me hit Shift F to turn this off. Let's go to our stroke. We have a standard brush. We'll turn the stroke on, make sure it's freehand. Again, like I told you in the previous volume, always go up to stroke. Turn this mouse average all the way up so it's nice and smooth. And make sure lazy mouse is off or dark so it's not active, okay? All right, so if I use my bracket key, the right hand bracket key next to the P key, or it's one over technically. I'm just going to move my brush size up, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a little sculpt, just like this. Now, as you can see, it's really pixelated here, and that's because, again, we don't have a lot of polygons on this. If I hit the Shift F to see, you can see it's taken our polygons and now just started stretching it out. It starts to deform it. Of course, if you had UVs on this, it would start to really make those all wonky. Now, when you're working with Dynamesh, the beauty of Dynamesh is you can remesh it. To remesh, you hold your Control key down and just draw a rectangle in the background. Now, if you'll notice, those are all now quads. All right, let's go back one just so you can see the difference on our timeline. Stretched polygons, but we remeshed it. We now have nice quads. So it redistributes the polygons so it makes it nice and clean. All right, but you can see it's still kind of pixelated. So I'm going to hit the Shift key and I'm just going to smooth that out. I can now go ahead and remesh if I want to, and it really doesn't matter. But let's go ahead and smooth this out a little bit more. And then we're going to sculpt on here. Oh, but again, it's really, really stretching. Well, at this point, I would go ahead and move to our resolution, type in 128 and hit enter, and now remesh. All right, what that did is you can see we just have that many more polygons. It's redistributed them, so that it's nice and quantified. And now if I hit my Shift key, Shift F, and hit Shift to smooth, it's nice and clean. All right, very, very nice, clean geometry. You can smooth back here. All right. Also, one of the beautiful things about, well, ZBrush in particular, is a lot of times I don't work in symmetry. I'm going to hit the X key off. A lot of times, and I think I mentioned this in the previous module, a lot of times I do all my work on one side. And I've found in ZBrush, the saying for me is right is wrong. If you decide you're going to work all on one side of your model, don't work on the right side. In ZBrush, we can actually mirror and weld, but it mirrors from the left to the right. It does not mirror from the right to the left. So right is wrong, left is the side you want to work with. So let's assume I'm doing something like, and again, I'm not looking to sculpt anything. I just want to show you what we can do. Okay, so we have something like that. I'm going to scroll my brush size down. I'm going to hold my Alt, and now I'm gouging into it. And again, I'm not doing anything to that side. All right, and I'm going to smooth it all down a little bit. And you go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I wanted. Again, since we're going to be messing with the geometry, it's under the Geometry tab. This is a very powerful suite right here, Modify Topology. I can't tell you how much I use that. All right. If we click this button right here, Mirror and Weld, boom, mirror and welded perfectly. All right. If, let's say, I'm going to Control Shift, I'm going to drag a rectangle in the background, do something like that. I can now delete the hidden, and in fact, I can close holes. See, it's now solid. Oh, but you know what? I really wanted to mirror and weld. Well, that's okay. We just mirror and weld again. I'll tell you what. In Modified Topology, especially with sculpting characters nowadays, I'm constantly using my Modified Topology for using mirror and weld, delete hidden, all sorts of things. All in here. I use them a lot. I implore you, play with it, learn it, get good with it. But again, right is wrong. Don't work on the right-hand side. Work on the left-hand side. Let's assume for a second, okay, let's just go ahead and assume that you are working on the right side. Oh, okay, so you're doing all of this. Oh, crap. Well, if I undo my timeline, if I undo it, it doesn't change the fact that all these little nodules did not end up on this side, and I need this over here. Again, one of these beautiful things is using combinations of it. Go to our deformation, and all we have to do is click mirror. Mirror has a little X, Y, Z. In fact, all these little buttons have X, Y, and Z. If the X is showing, it's going to mirror on the X. I can turn that off and turn on just the Y or just the Z, or a combination of X, Y, and Z. Right now, I only need the mirroring on the X, so I'll go ahead and hit mirror. Oh, now I can go back to geometry, mirror and weld. So there are a lot of ways to do this, but if you want to save yourself a couple of steps, if you're only going to work on half your model, work on the left half. That way you can just quickly do a mirror and weld. But this is, again, showing a combination of why it's the Geometry tab with Modify Topology and Deformation. Very, very, very important subpalettes, and I suggest you really learn those and really play with them. Layers is also very important, and we'll get into layers in the next module, because we're really going to come in. That's really going to come into play very soon. But that's something to really pay attention to. And then polygroups. Now, you don't really have to pay attention to anything else other than those, unless, of course, you're poly painting. Then you want the UV map and texture map. But I'm telling you, the important ones to know are the Geometry tab with the Modify Topology, layers, deformation, polygroups. They will come in handy. If you learn those main ones, you're going to find that you're going to increase your particular workflow. By the way, obviously, as you see when I start to scroll, and I'm changing which sub palette is open, of course it closes. When you open one, it closes the other. You can actually fix that. For instance, you can click on the sub tool here. If you go to the next one and hold your shift key down and then click on it, you now have kept both palettes open. Okay, you can do the same with array, all of it. Now I don't know why you would want to. I think it takes up a lot of visual real estate. But the nice thing is, this is the first time you collapse any one of them. All right, it goes back to what it would do anyway naturally. Again, that's holding your shift key down and clicking on the particular palette, and you will keep those open, at least for this session, as long as you have this particular file open. It isn't a standard issue controller. It's just, one to know in case you need to, all right?